Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset when it comes to faith, family, fitness, and food. Let's go. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome. I am Benjamin Lee. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I want to take you back to earlier this week as my family and I enjoyed the holidays together. As we got comfortable on the couch together with our pillows and blankets covering our legs and feet, I hit the play button to the DVD player. I was not necessarily looking forward to this moment. This old Christmas classic we were about to watch, it always hits me. There are certain movies that just hit me to the core. Maybe you have experienced those movies as well, and this was one of them. This movie makes me ponder life. It often makes me sad. It makes me ponder at times even the kind of attitude that I have at times. The movie began to play. It started off funny, and the three of us, me, Nikki, and Josh, we were laughing quite a bit. But I knew what was coming. Soon the moment would come. The movie began to get dark, serious, and real. I could feel tears begin to swell up in my eyes. How much would I cry this time? But just before all hope was lost in the movie, and for the main character, there was redemption, a second chance, new life. The movie I'm referring to, and maybe you already know which one I'm talking about, is called It's a Wonderful Life. I'm sure many of my listeners have seen it. It's become a family tradition in the Lee household to watch a variety of Christmas movies during the month of December, and this is one of them. Now, what's interesting about this movie is how it came to be. I was on the internet looking at some news websites, and I came across an article about the movie the next day, and since we had just watched it, I was curious, and I decided to read the article. This article is the reason for this episode, and this episode is called Tell Your Story. The article began with the title, It's a Wonderful Life, began with a Christmas card. Isn't that an interesting title and thought? It's a Wonderful Life began with a Christmas card. Let me just read a portion of the article to you. It said, after years of unsuccessfully trying to shop his short story, the greatest gift to publishers, Philip Van Doren Stern decided to give the gifts of words to his closest friends for the holidays when he printed up 200 copies of the story and sent them out as a 21-page Christmas card. David Hempstead, a producer at RKO Pictures, ended up getting a hold of it and purchased the movie rights for $10,000. There was more to the article, but I just want you to think about that portion of it for a second here. Isn't that amazing, thinking about how this movie, which would become It's a Wonderful Life, and obviously it kind of evolved throughout the years before it actually made the big screen, but when it did, it eventually would stick. It's a powerful reminder for me and for you that we need to tell our stories. Tell your story. You know, we live in an age where one can tell their story in so many different ways. There are blogs, there are books, there are podcasts. Tell your story. Yet for many people, there's great fear telling their story. People have thoughts like, and I've had thoughts like this as well, what if someone doesn't like it? What if people laugh? Or what if no one listens? Those are a lot of what ifs. But now let's change all of those what ifs for a moment. What if people take your story seriously? And what if people are deeply influenced and encouraged by you? What if people love your story? What if thousands or millions listen to your story or read your story and share your story? You see, this is why we need to tell our stories. Tell your story. Now, thinking about Philip Van Stern reminded me of a couple of things. Number one, as you think about yourself and as I think about myself, we need to write our stories. Whatever story that may be, maybe it's a story of your life or a fictional story that you have created. This man here, Philip, he wrote his story. He wrote his story, The Greatest Gift. And number two, as he wrote his story or after he wrote his story, he was very confident in his story. What impresses me so much about this article, considering just how big this movie is now, is that Philip got rejected numerous times. I'm reminded of best-selling author Tim Ferriss and his first book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Listening to one of his blogs, I believe he said that first book of his was rejected by 28 publishers. But he was confident as well. So was this man named Philip Van Stern. And what I think is most impressive is how Philip Van Stern printed out 200 copies of his story and sent it as a Christmas card. Can you believe that? In our kitchen, we have a lot of the Christmas cards and photos that people have sent us. We put it on one of the doors, so we get to look at people every time we go into the kitchen. But imagine someone sending you a 21 this long book, basically, as a Christmas card. That takes a lot of courage and a lot of confidence in making 200 copies to his friends. That takes courage. But that's the kind of mindset and heart and confidence that we need to have when it comes to telling our stories. We need to do that in 2020. Number 3, as I think about his story, opportunities will happen. That's something else that comes to mind. You see, when you tell your story and are confident with what you have, typically good things will happen. Now, it did for Philip. That's not to say that everything is going to work out perfectly. I don't know exactly what he was thinking when he decided to make 200 copies of his story and send them out, but he still seemed to have some kind of confidence. And if nothing else, he knew that this story, the greatest gift, and these words that he was going to share as a gift would hopefully motivate and encourage some of his closest friends. So he was already successful, whether or not his writings got published and whether or not they turned into a movie. He was successful because, number 1, he wrote his story. Number 2, he was confident in his story and he took action. And as a result of that, good things happened. So think about that for a moment. Do you have a story to tell? Tell your story. Write your story. Be confident in your story. And wait and see what opportunities might happen. See, I believe everyone has a story. We have stories that can and will have a tremendous impact on others. We just often have to have the courage to share them. I remember back in 2017 when I had the opportunity to speak at Bill Phillips. He was the author or is the author of Body for Life. It was a book that came out a couple of decades ago, and he has a transformation center in Colorado. And I was able to speak there, and I did a talk called Faith, Family, Fitness, and Food. I shared a lot of intimate details about myself and my family, and I was nervous about how people would view me and think. But what I found out after the talk is how so many people were able to relate with what I said. I've done the same thing in preaching as well, where I have shared certain things about myself or my family. And I do that because I'm certainly not bragging or anything like that, but I want to make a connection. And I think there is something powerful sharing certain things about yourself with others. And I've been able to hopefully influence others for good. So I want you to think about this. Tell your story. 2020 is upon us. Do you have a story to tell? Now is the opportunity. And let me conclude by giving you some resources to help you begin. I want to give you five resources or 5 thoughts that can help you as you begin to dive into telling your story. Number 1, one of the most easiest ways and quickest ways to tell your story is by starting a blog. My blog is benjaminlee.blog. And it's on WordPress. I recommend WordPress.com as the place where you begin to start your blog. It's pretty simple to start your blog. And one of the best things to do, sometimes people say, well, I don't know what to write about. Well, write about what you love. What is it that you love? What is it that you like? My blogs are typically designed to talk about faith, family, fitness, and food, because those are the biggest things in my life. And so I want you just to think about that. You can tell your story by writing a blog. It doesn't really cost that much money. And just getting in the habit of writing on a daily basis can go a long way with you influencing others for good. Number 2, another way to tell your story is to start a podcast. This is a podcast that I started back in November. I waited a long time, so I don't want you to do the same. This podcast is powered through Buzzsprout.com, and you can get a subscription there or you can set up a membership there. And then all you really need is a microphone and a computer, and you're ready to go. But again, people will say, well, what am I supposed to talk about? Well, talk about what you love. I Can Do is all about the mindset that I've been working on developing for the last decade after getting my first implantable cardioverter defibrillator, my ICD. And so this is where I Can Do comes from. And that's why I'm talking about strategies and tips when it comes to having this I Can Do mindset. So starting a podcast is a way for you to share your story. That's what I'm trying to do as well, share my story in the attempts of encouraging and helping others along the way. A third thing that you can do is join a team. There's lots of different writing teams and resources that are out there. I'll share one with you that I know by experience. Back in 2017, I joined the BLAST program, BLAST. The BLAST program, which stands for Building Leaders, Authors, Speakers, and Teachers. And this is run and designed by best-selling author Shannon Ethridge. It was a great decision for me to do that. I'm still connected with that group. And you can get guidance to help you to get started, books for you to read, coaching, a team that you can run things by, assignments, and so forth, and the guidance that a lot of people need when they're trying to maybe create a platform or writing a book and things like that. So that's another resource that you could turn to. So joining a team will go a long way as well to tell your story. Another way that you can tell your story is to read books. One of the best things you can do are to read books. There are so many books that are out there when it comes to writing and speaking, so you can share your story more effectively. The most recent one that I have read that I would recommend is the book called Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. Now, my wife first read her book earlier in the year, and she heard her speak at her 31 conference. And then later on in the year, we actually met Kendra, the author, we met her in Plano, Texas, at a book launch, a book signing. And so then I eventually read the book, and it's a great book. And it's about how storytelling can captivate customers, influence audiences, and transform your business. So it's a great read, and it will certainly help you to know, as she talks about in the book, what stories to tell, how to tell them, so that you can really, separate yourself from others and just be more effective in telling your story. Then the last tip or suggestion or resource I'll give you to help you to tell your story is by self-publishing. Now, Philip Van Stern tried to publish his book. It didn't work out. But now we have so many resources where you don't necessarily have to go to a publishing company. I have self-published a number of books through what was originally called CreateSpace.com. Now that's Kindle Direct Publishing. So Kindle Direct Publishing, which is a part of Amazon, the website is kdp.amazon.com. So you can upload your book. You can make a cover, you can have someone else design your cover, and you can have your book made and sold through Amazon, and it's really quite easy to do it. So it's another resource that's very effective, very fast, and it's something very simple that all of us can do. Now, I am working on another book that I'm going to, Lord willing, send to a publishing company, and that's kind of nerve-wracking as well. But the story of Philip Van Stern and his original writing, The Greatest Gift, that turned into a wonderful life. It's a wonderful life. That story has given me great confidence. And sharing your story, no doubt, I believe, will help someone else. It will help you, and it will certainly help someone else as well. So the question is, what are you waiting for? Now is the time to get after it. Tell your story and watch what happens. I hope this helps. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave me a review wherever you may be listening. And remember, I can do, and so can you.